Hi, it's Dr. Ray here, and I have been working with clients for over 30 years, and I've seen over 6,000 clients and have been in the coaching industry for over 30 years. And I do have clinical experience. I have a doctorate in clinical psychology and a master's in counseling psychology. So I'm going to talk about uh, the twin flames universe. And also, for those who say are speaking up, say members of the group, such as saying they've had great experiences, that it's a great community, and that they experience value from that, despite the backlash that we're all seeing on the docuseries, such as on Netflix and Amazon. And isn't it interesting for those who say are observing this, and you're probably thinking to yourself, how could you support a group of individuals who cut down their members, tell their members that it's their fault, clearly see Jeff thinking he's the second coming of Christ, uh, him not taking personal responsibility, and many other things. And here's the thing, no matter how he words it, and no matter what your relationship is with Jeff and Shalia, if that's how you say her name correctly, it's in the footage. Does that make sense? You can't delete that. And all humans, including myself as a coach, we have had our bad moments. We all have. And yet, good coaches don't yell at their clients. I don't care what you believe or think, all right? Good coaches don't tell their wife to shut up on camera and say, shut up when a man speaks. Good coaches don't tell clients that they have specialized knowledge and you can't get it anywhere else, as if their course is the only one. Good coaches don't say that they're doing a healing or that they're doing a work. Okay? So, something to understand that all a coach does, or therapist, is hold a container for the opportunity for healing to take forth. And what I mean by that, sure, you could be a great skilled coach and recognize if a client is having resistance and so forth, and you can keep pushing them and hold that container in a good way and ask the right questions. But still remember, when they're answering the questions and when it leads to maybe transformation, is it happening from you or them? It's them. They're doing the healing work. Because if you have been a coach for a while and you are trying to work with someone who has major depression, it doesn't matter what you say or do, you're not going to see much change until they maybe heal that trauma. Uh, Also, if you have been working as a coach for a while and you understand trauma, you would recognize that that needs to be healed first. Otherwise, that client is going to feel disappointed, which maybe is what happened. Uh, and of course, those who feel victimized probably had trauma, and I'm not diagnosing anyone. And therefore, because there wasn't the healthy container to heal that, because most coaches are not trained in trauma, that it was projected onto, say, Jeff and Shalia. However, if you yell at even a healthy person, even as myself, I'm not going to be okay with that. I wouldn't put up with that. And healthy people establish healthy boundaries. So it doesn't matter what you feel and think if you are part of that organization of twin flames. Look at how they're acting. Look at their behavior. Look at their philosophies. Look at how others have been really hurt. Look at the footage yourself, even if you have had a good experience. I wouldn't say that maybe they're necessarily a cult because I understand the teachings. In fact, before I was even aware of these docu-series, someone said, hey, check out these videos on YouTube. And I said, it sounds like a lot of West Coast typical neo-tantra, David Data type of language. And sure enough, I discovered that Jeff had been in California and probably learned that. Also, that he had been in Hawaii, which makes sense also. So that language is not Jeff's. It's not Jeff's. All those concepts are not Jeff's and Shalaya's, okay? And by the way, the changing of the name, that happens all the time in, say, the pseudo-spiritual community. There's this idea that this person, say, gets a download, which I'm explain in a moment, and that they feel a different type of name, not the name that their parents named them, but it's part of their essence. And that makes sense, and I support that. But the person who changes their name, that's still within their consciousness to create that. It's not like it's coming from God, it's coming from within through your nervous system, through unresolved trauma, through whatever, where your consciousness is. So if you have unhealed trauma also as a coach, and if you also maybe haven't worked out friction points of your personality, such as you're abrasive, you have poor bedside manners, to you cross boundaries, as a coach, that's going to show up, particularly when participants, people interviewing you, or just life stressors put you on a spot. And it happened on camera. You got caught. I am not a perfect individual also. However, again, I would never work that way, and nor have I ever seen any good coach work that way. So, in other words, for those who want to know a little bit more about coaching, it doesn't take much to become a coach. There's no regulation. You don't really have to do any schooling. There's no supervision. And so people maybe have good intentions. They have an awakening, or they discover new self-awareness. They feel really good. And oftentimes they want to share this to the world. But if they have unhealed personality parts of themselves that's not integrated, and they're still running around those same programs that they experienced in their childhood, like a very demanding father, an insecure mother, to be raised in a culture where you think you're superior and women are inferior, to maybe you were bullied and that had not been healed, to you haven't really found your sense of self. Therefore, when you get in a position of power, or you get in a position of making money, and now you think you've done it right because you now own a home or whatever else, of course, your ego is going to become inflated. You're going to think you have some special power. You're going to think that maybe you're the only healing. And when someone questions that and you get upset, you might become the bully yourself. So for those who are still a part of the organization, and I'm unsure if you'll watch this video, here's the thing. I've been in this field for over 30 years. And I remember as well when I did my first healing session, where I was doing it for free, and I saw someone have some type of transformation. They had a new perspective on life. They felt better, and it felt really good. And it became very natural. And I started working with a mentor, and I traveled the world and using his modalities, and I was seeing change. And I remember at first being younger and starting to see money come in. And yes, we should charge people for our services, and if they're experiencing value, correct? Nothing wrong with that. And I remember people complimenting me, like, clients saying, "You're really amazing. You are amazing. You are amazing." And for a new coach, particularly someone as young as them, uh, by the way, I could be off. I know nothing about Shalaya, but she communicates in a way as if she had some type of abuse, to where she had been traumatized and had experienced that. I'm not sure, I'm not diagnosing, but I can just hear it in her communication that there's stuff that I imagine that will continue to be um, revealed. For me, I'm not so much interested in uh, trying to go down that conspiracy road and put so much emphasis on Jeff and Shalaya, but more to expose others to coaching and how it works and how people can become inflamed. And by the way, if anyone thinks they're Jesus Christ or their second coming, that's mental illness. That's just delusional. This bottom line. So back to what I was sharing. Sorry, I digressed. I'm not even editing this video. Is that when I started getting the compliments and I started feeling good and I started making money, and keep in mind, I was young. I was in my 20s. I thought it was about me, just like Jeff. I thought, wow, I'm really good at what I do. And because I was making money, I felt some sense of self and empowerment or pseudo empowerment, because it's primarily by how people are validating me. Um, and it felt good to be seen that way. But I was humbled, and I learned in time, particularly through my mentorship and working with other people who are really good at their craft, that you just kind of hold the space for that healing to show up, and it might not happen. But me, the coach, and no other coach is doing the healing. Okay? Do you understand that? So you don't have special powers. It happens through the client um, having some type of shift and having maybe a better feeling than where they were before they started working with you. And that's it. Okay? So it happens within the, the client. We don't have special powers. All right? I wrote some notes here just to kind of point out some things here. I didn't want to have to do a bunch of editing. I just want to put this video out there. And so people sometimes ask, like, what type of person gets involved with this when, if they're having their boundaries crossed, if they're experiencing very angry language towards them, where the coach is mocking them and they stay in that. Oftentimes those people are in trauma response. They don't know the difference. They maybe grew up in an abusive home, so they don't know the difference of kindness and a coach who has come from a heart versus someone who's still in their ego and very angry and disrespectful. It's not always the case, but it's what I've seen. The other part is this, is that if a person is really hurt, they're so desperate, they feel so empty, and they feel as though the goal to make themselves happy is to get in a relationship, or the goal is to make money, and you offer guarantees which nobody can give guarantees. But this person is so desperate, they go against their own critical thinking and the red flags, that they be willing to subscribe to that BS. And so the best coaches on the planet never give guarantees. You don't know what a person's free will is. You don't know what they still need to learn. You don't know how many times they need to keep getting knocked down. You don't know if they've hit their rock bottom to maybe finally make that change. You just don't know. When it comes down to it, you're just one stepping stone for the journey, and that's it. But you can't guarantee anything, bottom line. So this is important to recognize if you are a coach, if you're a part of that organization, or if you're watching this video. Um, Some other things I want to mention here too that I put here is I want to talk about the mirror exercise. And here's a big thing. I hear the language, and while there might be good intentions in that, the coaches are novice. They don't know what they're doing, to where it might be they took the information, um, kind of made it more of a hybrid version of themselves to make it more original or something, and just botched it. So, as an example, for the mirror exercise, which I saw a lot of people talk about. So, this is how this goes for coaches and those who are watching us. So, all of us know that we've made poor choices before. We know we should have said no, and particularly if we had poor boundaries. Many of us know that we can participate differently to get a better outcome. However, knowing this, and me knowing this as a coach, I would never communicate in a way where we use the language of shaming or it's your fault. So, as an example, this would be something that would be more inviting to understand that mirror exercise and how that works. And for those who took it as that, it's true that sometimes, like let's say about the twin flames universe, they guarantee that there's another person out there, and they're choosing people against another person's free will. That is so ridiculous. And it's true that that other person might just not like the other person because they're not attracted to them. And it's okay for another person to say no to us, or no to those people who are searching for their partner. And it could be just plain as that. It's just a rejection. However, here's something to understand about taking personal responsibility. And it goes further back to what I was discussing here in this video. So if a person's yelling at you and you don't like the experience, and you allow them to convince you that it's your resistance, that itself should be looked at. And the question, it's not like you go in a mirror and go, I'm mad at Jeff and so, and you turn it around and say, I'm mad at myself, at Jeff and Shalaya, and therefore it's my fault. Or how about this? You cross boundaries, because it sounds like a lot of these people are doing stalking. And the person might go in a mirror and go, I feel bad because blah, blah, blah. And they turn it around. I am bad for whatever that language is. Again, I'm not reading script, and I'm just trying to break this down in a very simple way so everyone can understand, but to share it the way I might do it, okay? So here are some examples. A client might say, love means I will get hurt. Well, I might explore with that client by them recognizing what they need. And they might say the affirmation, I'm safe to receive and give love. But it might be a process where they say, I'm afraid to be hurt again. I'm afraid to be traumatized again. And that's true. So you might ask them the question, what do you need to know to feel safe with yourself? They might say, I need to trust my decisions. And then as a coach, a good coach, I might say, well, how can we crystallize that? How can we make that true so that becomes you? How can you practice that? It's such a different type of invitation to mirror back people's experiences, particularly when they're negative, and to not shame them. Another example would be this. I have a friend who was almost date raped. She ran out of the car, and she sought help from a coach who had good intentions, but immediately when she mentioned it, he said, how do you think that's your fault? Like, you attracted that. You have had this happen 2 other times. So it was the way he mentioned it. It might have been the timing. So true, this has happened to this woman several times. So there must be some pattern. But if a person just escaped, like almost being raped or something traumatic, do you think that's the way you talk to a trauma survivor? No, it might be something more like this. how can I help you right now? That might have been scary. Tell me about the experience, so they can share their narrative. And then that might lead to it. Once you build trust and they feel, it might be after the third or fourth session, is there anything that you recognize that you went against, like your decisions? And that woman, the trauma survivor, might say, he sent this type of text, or I felt something, but I didn't do something. Then that coach might ask, why didn't you? And the client might say, I just don't trust myself. And then the coach might say, what can we do to build trust in this area so you can be more authentically yourself and say no and have firm boundaries? So it's an invitation. It is not an attack. I also know that whether or not the teachings are just misunderstood, or the person's unhealed trauma is coming out, so you experience the coach as being so aggressive. Also within Tony Robbins' organization, I hear this all the time, where they train coaches. So this happens a lot in the coaching world, where a coach will create a program, duplicate himself, and say certified coaches, but it's so quick, it's so fast, there's no supervision. So a lot of their unhealed trauma comes out, to where they still need to work on themselves. Yeah. And so I've heard coaches from Tony Robbins uh, yelling at people. And uh, I even worked with a prior coach who was supposedly yelled at by Tony. Now, this is not to discredit Tony Robbins. Again, I wasn't there. I don't know. But when a person takes information and they hear it in their own way, like, online people misinterpret a lot of things. In fact, someone probably is taking something out of context, is going to turn this around on me, which is okay. But imagine a client saying, I don't know, and I just don't want to talk about this right now. You can tell they're holding in something. They're just saying language where they don't want to take personal responsibility. Well, that could be considered resistance. I've seen it many times, where a client is just not there. In fact, I had a gentleman who fired 3 therapists. He came to see me. He told me the other therapists tried to control him. Part of the issue was he was trying to break away from his family. And when we started working in the session, I could see his body was feeling uncomfortable. He said, I don't know if I want to do this. And I said, you can open up the door if it makes you comfortable. You can leave anytime you want. We can stop. And I gave him the permission to do whatever he wants to do. But he was feeling something, and he ended up leaving early. But I didn't put him down. I didn't say, you're resisting. I didn't tell him that, the man up, you're being a wimp. There's a difference between sharing with a person that they might have resistance and attacking them. And again, you have a lot of inept coaches who don't know how to do this. They don't have the training. So if a client had resistance, if a client had resistance, the way I approach it would be, if I were to say, kind of use my own body awareness and my intuition, the only things I might say is this: I'm feeling in this moment that there might be some tension. Is that true for you? I noticed that you're moving around a lot. Do you notice that? And is there something coming up? To even this, if you were to push past this block, is there something you might be afraid of? It's an invitation. Do you know when you might be ready to move past this, or what do you need? If they're just not talking at all, sometimes just sitting with them and have them close their eyes and feel into their body, you might just say, if you were to go somewhere in your body to feel resistance, what might the resistance say? So you see the difference? It's allowing the client to participate and collaborate with you, so you can do this together. Because again, remember, it's a collaboration. The coach, the therapist, the healer is not doing the work. You're doing the work together. It's a collaboration. Does this make sense? So I'm going to share some other stuff here too, which I think is very important for people. And so it's this, particularly if someone's watching this and they're going, what do you look for? What are the signs you look for to avoid like uh, a shady coach? It's simple. And it would be, look at the teacher and how they're modeling themselves. For example, if they're giving parenting advice and they don't even have children, like how would they really know? Or if they're teaching meditation and they seem really stressed out, doesn't seem like it's working for them, right? Okay. Um, what values do they convey? Like, I mean, are their values aligned with you? As an example, what if they're polyamorous and you are not? Do you think they're gonna like really know what you want or hold space for that? Also, is there potential harm? Does it make sense to you? If it doesn't, until it does, don't do it. Um, do you feel safe to decline a program, to opt out? And if you're not, don't do it. You need to be able to say, I'm done. Okay. Uh, Also, are they requesting a commitment that you're not ready to give? So you don't commit to something until you're 100% sure. Remember, it's your body and your rules. Um, are you comfortable saying no to them? Like, meaning, are you a people pleaser to where you're afraid to discontinue the program because you have this idea that you'll upset others? Okay. You need to know these things. Um, how open and responsive is the teacher to your questions? If they tell you that your questions are projections or they won't answer your questions, they're not they're just not going to be able to hold that space for you. They're blocking something. To maybe they're going to turn it around and say that those questions are for you and you're projecting. What if you are? What if you are projecting? That's why you're there, to understand that. So as an example, I've had new prospective clients ask me questions and I'll answer the questions. But when it starts sound like the same thing, I will give it back to them and I'll say, do you notice that you've asked the question maybe different ways? Is there a way I can answer this so you understand better? Am I not answering you in a correct way? So I kind of give it back to them to take some personal responsibility to dig deeper, to maybe even say things that they're afraid to say, like such as, I don't trust you, or I don't want to work with a man. I would want to know that as a coach, like, are you comfortable with me? Because if they're not, I'm probably not a fit. And also a big one is this: is look at the graduates, look at the product of the participants or the students. Do you like how they're showing up, and do they have maybe what you're trying to experience? And here's one last thing, and it's sometimes in organizations that you will see people have amazing results. In fact, I have been in many organizations where I have experienced value, but traumatized people didn't. But here's the thing: it wasn't the traumatized people's fault. These coaches were not experienced. They weren't experienced. So they didn't know how to help ground them to even vet them out as to whether or not they are a fit. There's this idea that there's haters, and this is why there's all these problems. But once again, you have to look at the footage. You have to look at a person who thinks he's the second coming of Jesus Christ. You have to see how these coaches mock people. The list goes on. And this is how I see it. If you see the consistent feedback, such as if 5 people said Harvey Weinstein did it, probably did. If 10 people said Bill Cosby did something, he probably did. And in an organization, if you see uh, a lot of participants who feel their boundaries are crossed, that they're hurt, that their answers are not being answered, their questions are not being answered, to many other things, that's the feedback. Sure, there's a shadow in every organization. Nothing is perfect. but the shadows are screaming volumes with Jeff and Shalaya. So makes sense. I mean, it's there. So it's not that people are attacking him because they're just haters. There's something off. It's clear. And this is what's showing up. So moving forward, I hope those who are getting value from this, and that, and again, I'm not saying it's the victim's fault. It's just very important that we take personal responsibility for our decision making. We take personal responsibility to look at the red flags and say no. And I hope this video helped you understand this and adds value to your life. And if there are any of the coaches within that organization that sees this, I'm not here to convince you, but if you were to really listen in your heart and what you might call the divine, masculine, and feminine, and you forget, you leave, put aside how you think you feel with Jeff and Shalaya, even if you had a good experience with them, there's a lot of people who didn't. This is not to dismiss you had a good experience. It's that there are many coaches out there where some people had really good experiences, and there are some people they really perpetrated. And so, do you want to be aligned or part of an organization where you're hearing this, you're witnessing something? Would you want to be on that team? Okay, so thank you for watching this video. Hi, it's Dr. Ray here, and thank you for watching this video. I really appreciate your support, and you are the one who drives this channel. So if you like to be notified when new videos come out, please subscribe to my channel and push the bell button so you are notified when new videos come out. I appreciate you supporting this channel.